Thank you. All right, well, welcome to our meeting. It's 6:31, and we'll get started. Harvey and Walter have been working closely with Tetra Tech over the past couple of weeks to refine things and be able to get materials together for us to talk about. And to make life easier, I'm just going to turn this over to Harvey because he's the one who has been working with them. So, Harvey?
Sure. Thanks, Larry. So, to get going here, first I want to introduce some individuals that you may or may not be familiar with. With us tonight, we have Garrett Hamlin from Tetra Tech, and we've got Tom Farlow from Tetra Tech. On the screen, we have Barb Chambers and Mike Hale. What's going on? Okay, so we got a full array here of experts. Where I thought we would start is really to kind of revisit and move forward with, what has changed, what have we done since last meeting? The first thing I want to touch on is perhaps maybe a little bit of housekeeping, and it has to do with this 11 by 17 piece of paper here, okay? What we've done is this is our planning document, and we've expanded on it. What you'll notice in the salmon type color up in the top right, we've actually been able to identify what I'll call a priority listing. And what we've done is we've categorized every project into one of three buckets. The first one is what we would call absolutely critical need. The second one is what we would say we can probably hold off on to a future project. And the third one is what we have identified that we can do in district with our own labor and our own staff. And then there's obviously some notes there. The notes pertain to why there might not be a cost figure there as yet, okay? So this is a dynamic document. It's going to change every week that we meet. You have to understand that a lot of the figures are not firm. We're getting new information every day. The scope needs to be refined on much of this stuff. So please understand that. As we move forward, this will start to firm up, though. The one thing I will also point out is that what we've done with the athletic field is, on the last page, we've pulled it out and put it on the very bottom as its own separate item. We didn't include it as part of the middle school or part of the high school. So just keep that in mind. The last thing I'll mention is there has only been one addition to this entire sheet since you got it last time, and it's Willow Avenue, and it's actually the egress out of the auditorium, okay? We didn't have that on the last one, and it should have been. So with that said, what I'd like to do now is I'd like to shift to this memo that you have in front of you. I believe Larry sent it to the group. And this is where really speaks toward what we've been doing over the last couple weeks. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Tetra Tech in conjunction with Walter, and they're going to walk us through this, and they're going to take you through what we've identified, what we now know that we didn't know, what we're still waiting on, et cetera. So, Garrett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Harvey. So, as Harvey mentioned, we've been very busy over the last couple weeks. Thanks to Walt for shepherding our staff around. We had a roofing expert out. Tom Farlow, site engineer, traffic engineer, has been out, and we'll share some information tonight. We also had a plumbing engineer come out. And then we have some work scheduled next week. We'll have a mechanical engineer and electrical engineer out next week as well. So Barb Chambers is on virtual here on the screen, and Michael Hale, head of site department, is with her. So I'm going to ask Barb if you would start walking us through the memo items one by one.
Sure.
So if everybody has a copy of the memo here, this is what we want to give you an update on line by line. So go ahead, Barb.
Okay, yeah, so we met with Walter and Harvey after our last meeting, and they identified these items for us to focus our efforts on for the purposes of this meeting. So I'm just going to walk you through and tell you what we've been up to. So the first one is roofs, and we do have someone in our office named Roger who we call our roofing guru. So he went out last week and he met with Walter to look at the areas of roofing in question. So they've identified the areas of mostly flat roofs and identified what type of roofing system they would like. You know, we want a fully adhered black EPDM, and we want this many mils and this many year warranty, and we'll do that as a base bid, and then we can have an alternate for something a little more oomph, and that would be possibly a higher price, but we'd get a separate alternate pricing for that, which again says on bid day, we ask the contractor, give us your bid for this, but tell us how much you charge us to give us a little something extra. And just identifying the scope of work, what mechanical units would need to come up and be reinstalled. There's ductwork on the roofs that would need to be removed and reinstalled, and just tried to quantify some of that and pass it on to Lou for some pricing. Again, we reiterate that an entire roof area needs to be re-roofed in order to generate the aid. You can't just, if there's a 10-foot by 10-foot area that's bad, you can't do that and get aid. That would be considered a repair. So really identifying the areas of work and passing that type of information on for better pricing. I will say our next step here would probably be a structural one. Because of the recent new energy codes, when we do re-roofing on a flat area, particularly this concerns, we have to put a lot more insulation in that roof. So what they're concerned about in the new code is because heat is not being lost through your roof, snow loads could go up because that heat is not going through your roof and melting the snow. So now when we do re-roofing, we really want to take a look at the structure and make sure that the existing structure supporting the roof meets these new higher structural loads due to the new energy code, because your snow is just sitting up there and not melting. So that'll be the next step to see if any of these facilities receiving flat re-roofing might in addition need some structural reinforcement. Any questions about the roof portion?
One question, I know, when will the roof scan be done? I know it's listed on the docs. Just want to be sure when we'll get a date on that.
We don't have a firm date, but we hope by the next meeting to have it done. I can't promise you that these guys are, you know, everybody's busy.
That's about the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as soon as we can, we're pushing them.
Yeah, I can add to that too. I think, so at the administrative building, we were looking at a simulated Slate product. We just got pricing back on that today.
That's just a little bit later on the page, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the point is, all the roofing stuff, I think we can really have that together by, you know, the next meeting. The rip-off and replacement of the built-up roof and whatnot, we can price that as well. So, nothing.
Just a question on, you talk about the structural reinforcements on those flat roofs. Do you have an estimate on what that could possibly run?
I do not, because I don't know what it could be. It could be nothing. It could be extensive. So it's really hard to hazard. Again, this is a very new code impacting everyone. So it really varies building by building, even wing by wing, if there's different vintages.
So that's part of the
what the remediation might be could vary greatly.
So
it could be just welding on a couple pieces of additional metal. It could be additional joists. It could be nothing. So it's hard to quantify. So that'll be our next step now that we've identified the areas to start looking at the structure.
Yeah, and as Barb said, our engineer will come out, review drawings, and then provide information to the construction manager to be able to give us budget prices for that.
A brief point of clarity, and this is based on a new building code requirements for roofing structure or roofing support?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, years ago.
Yeah, so this is something that has not come up in the past in re-roofing project. This is new energy code related, and it's very new.
Good. Any other questions?
Okay, anything else on the roof, or should I move on? I'll move on.
CS.
I'm sorry, say that again?
What roofs were identified in the BCS?
Dave, here what Barbara's speaking towards is the middle school, the D wing. So we're focusing on that built-up ballast roof to remove and replace. And then, of course, further in the agenda is the district office. And we'll talk about what products that we'll use, comparing that to the cost.
Okay. Moving on to the plumbing line item. So we also had last week one of our plumbing engineers go out and meet with Walter, and then one of your on-staff master plumbers. So he really went out and toured all the facilities with your staff, and they were able to identify really what is this, in bathroom by bathroom, this is the quantity of fixtures we need to replace. This is the kind of fixtures we need to replace. We need to take out the walls. We need this for valves. We need this for flush valves. What do we want to auto flush? What do we want to be battery powered? What do we want to be electric? What's just manual? Going through all those choices with your staff, narrowing that down, getting some quantities, and sending that all on to Lou for some pricing, as well as identifying, replacing some main water lines from the building out to the street and trying to get some linear feet information like that, also to Lou for pricing. Our next step there is going to be verifying at the schools that you have enough fixture counts to meet the current codes as well. I think you'll be all right. It's just at the middle school, our plumbing engineer's gut instinct was like, gosh, it just seems like there's a little bit less bathrooms than typically you have, but he did not go to every space. Maybe there's some additional bathrooms we haven't quantified, but we just want to make sure as soon as possible that if we're under the existing code for plumbing fixture counts, that we can start working with SED around that. And or if you're right on the borderline and we need to lower your count because we need to make more space for ADA accessible bathrooms, that we get ahead of that and get everything cleared with SED. I'll also say that next week we'll have our electrical engineer and our mechanical engineers out to do similar walkthroughs with your staff. Any questions on that? Okay, I'll move on. So the next was Willow Ave and some of the water remediation issues. So again, Roger walked with Walter all around the building and inside the building. So just sort of taking it into bite-sized pieces. The first one is the loading dock area. So there's sort of a raised loading dock, and directly underneath that is your electrical room. Part of the idea, as we gather, is to actually enclose that whole area to become a receiving area. So it's almost an addition. And that would help keep some of the water out from going through the loading dock, through that, what is the floor of the loading dock and the roof of the electrical room, and having water come in through that. We'll need to work with SED because inherently an addition of a receiving area would not be aidable, but if we can convince them it is happening over the existing footprint of your building, is it then a renovation that is fully aidable? So that is something we'll need to start working on as well. There was some talk about maybe making that footprint bigger than the existing loading dock. And again, there we need to really make sure that we're not getting you into an unaidable addition situation. So those are some of the thoughts there of actually enclosing that whole loading dock, walls, roof, creating a receiving area, and then that helps with the water mitigation of things seeping down into the electrical rooms. Any discussion on the receiving area?
Barb, I have a question. Maybe you could just speak toward the option that we're talking about to remediate the water infiltrating into where the electrical panels are. Is there any other option out there? I mean, we know that there's quite a bit of water.
So also building wide. So another thing is right now, your grade sort of goes down. So there's the ramp up to the loading area, and then there's sort of a, between that ramp and the building is a little area, and then there's a little sunken court, and then you go through the doors into that electrical area. There's no sort of trench drain or anything. So water can just sort of sit in that little trough and then it can go in through the door. So we're also looking at reworking some of the grading there, maybe adding a trench drain so water can't just stand there. Also, just around the entire perimeter, looking at some perimeter drainage, and we're going to recommend that we get some deep test bores around the building because we think you've got two issues going on and they would be approached differently. One is water coming out of the sky, rain, snow melt, etc. And the other is water coming up through the ground. It sounds like you've got a very high water table there and it's literally seeping up through the ground. And there are different things to try and do about that. Trying to handle rainwater is much easier. So I think we want to look at some test borings so we can get a handle on where exactly is the water table in relationship to your finished floors on the inside. And also some surveys, whether you have any existing or we get some new. Where is the grade sloped towards the building and water is hitting the ground and running towards your building? And also you have some downspouts that just sort of come down and the water comes out pretty close to the building and or causing icing right where that's coming down. So how can we alter the grade so grade is pitched away from the building, get rainwater coming down those rain leaders away from the building. The majority of the surface around your building is asphalt, so tearing up some asphalt, putting in some perimeter drainage, possibly either membrane or water applied, some waterproofing along the foundation walls, maybe some curtain drainage at the top of the slope to prevent all that water from going down. But dealing with water coming up through the ground is a lot trickier because how do you get under the foundation of your whole building? So we're still working on all that. And feel free, Michael, if you want to tag team any of this, but we can see where there are some existing catch basins. We can do some underground drainage and tie into that if that's in working shape to just try and mitigate the moisture coming into the building, but preventing water from seeping up through the bottom of all your foundations is another piece.
Exactly, Barb. And I think it really boils down to just having a controlled entry and release of the water that affects your building. Trying to take advantage of, and the survey will help us in this, the existing grades or the ones that are being counterproductive and can be remedied, and the existing stormwater infrastructure that is on site. We note that there are some catch basins. What we don't know is how effective they are currently, what capacity they have, and what the discharge of them is, but those are things we can find out and then work with those tools to find the remedies we need. That's all I would add for that.
Okay. And then I'll go through it and then we can take any questions. So the other piece is the wood gym floor. It's our understanding that that wood floor system is above by a foot or a couple of feet the concrete slab below, and then there's some sort of support structure raising that gym floor up above it, and you can see there's sort of some grates around the perimeter to attempt to allow some airflow under there to release moisture, but there's no active ventilation. It's not clear to us 100% yet if that is the entire surface of the gym floor, if it's sort of a ducted thing around the edge. But we would recommend removing the entire wood gym floor and whatever that support system is and replacing all of that. And potentially, if there's any membrane that goes under there, but a membrane needs to be under something else. So we can't just put a membrane on top of the concrete and think that that would prevent the moisture. Something has to be weighing and keeping that membrane in place. So whether, can we put gravel on top of it? Is there another slab? Is there anything to be done there? And then the other discussion that came up is what is the new appropriate gym floor surface? Typically nowadays, an elementary school might have more of a resilient or rubber type flooring, but we understand there are community members that use that that gym for basketball. So is wood more appropriate? So that's another decision we'll need to have made, is what do we think that floor surface for the new floor for the gym should be? And then during that walkthrough is when we found the new scope item that has been added to that spreadsheet. Exiting from the auditorium comes directly from the stage. So there's a single door out the side of the stage, and then there's an exterior metal ladder that goes down, 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 down to grade. And that is all deteriorated. And I gather there's question if that's enough egress width from the auditorium. So we'll need to take a look at that. But I gather the idea was, could we create a door directly from the auditorium? So that would be at least a couple feet lower, and then grade goes up as you go along that building. So you're bringing the ground up and you're bringing the floor down. So instead of this giant ladder, maybe there's something shorter, and maybe there's a way to even ramp that and make that accessible. And we could make the door wider as well. So that is the new scope item that is on your spreadsheet under Willow Ave. That was a lot. Any questions?
I have a quick question. Walter, are you familiar with the floor system and the annular space that Barbara's referring to and all that?
Over the years, we've had to do repairs of the floor because of water damage coming in, subsurface water. And we did see an elevated floor 12, 14 inches by their staircase.
What year are we talking about that? What year are we thinking that went in?
Yeah, what year is the school, Harvey?
Is it original construction or is it a modified version of it?
I would believe it is. That is original to the building.
So as-built questions probably funny at that point.
I might have some.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments, thoughts? Okay, great. So.
The area surrounded, that surrounds Willow Avenue has had intense drainage work on Rose Hill Park over the years to mitigate that. That's a wetland there. There was no houses at one time at the end, and when they built the houses, it got worse and worse, so everybody was getting water. And they did a lot of drainage work between there and also on Maple. So we're probably getting some, we're sharing into that load of water that sits there. It comes off of Poplar in the back, and it also comes down. Willow sits in a low spot. It definitely does, and so that's part of the problem.
I don't want to swat a hornet's nest with this question, but I gotta go this way, Harvey. You got the long-term shoes on. Is there anything we can go and speak to the town about, a study that's been done with, impermeable surfaces and runoff and such? And the school came first. If the school came first in a wetland scenario, and then all these impermeable surfaces come off and runoff is facing the wrong direction.
I mean, we could certainly look into that in terms of getting what studies have been done. I don't know if you're basically saying we were there first and, you did this to us. I don't know, is that kind of what?
A town is incumbent to, a town has the obligation to, if they're creating impermeable surface, to modify drainage and,
Right.
and their municipal systems.
Right.
So if they've not, I'm not doing this. We have
Right.
a
No,
bond
I
to
understand. I
attend
wasn't
to,
suggesting.
But, we have things to attend to here, but if there's not negotiations, if there's a way we can collaborate and talk a little bit, maybe, I don't know if the town is searching for FEMA money recently. I don't know if there's flood, flood assistance
Right.
of the rains of late, and
Yeah, I think your point is well taken, that, maybe in conjunction with our assessment of that water table, if we can, converse with the town to see what they have that might help us understand
Sure.
the situation better.
just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay, should I move on to the next item? which is the district office slate roof replacement. So again, Roger, our roofing guru, went out and looked at that with Walter. And basically there are three options as we see it. One is to replace in kind with slate. Another would be to replace it with some high quality asphalt shingles with a 50-year warranty. And then the third option is to use sort of what we would call a synthetic slate, which also has a 50-year warranty. And it also, some of those materials can be considered green because they're recyclable and they make use of recycled materials such as recycled plastic, rubber, cellulose, mineral dust, et cetera. So I believe you should have some samples of some of those options. And we also gave the product literature to Lou for some pricing on that. So I don't know if that's anything we'd be prepared to make a selection on this evening.
So as you guys are looking at the different samples, when we're talking about the existing slate, what really costs the money as far as replacing the slate, of course, is the material, right? Buying or reusing their existing material, but the labor. Because it's a slate material, there's only so much you can put down in a certain day. The products that you're seeing that are being passed around are lightweight. They can be cut to fit easily, and you can do 5 times the install in one day that you do in a normal slate. So a slate product, you do about 1.5 square a day. Simulated slate, you can do almost 7 to 8 square a day. So it's a when you look at it, the products as far as the costs are very similar. It's the labor that you're saving on. And these products have a 50-year warranty. And even the asphalt products that are out there now, you can get 30 to 50-year warranties on the asphalt products as well. So I'm still waiting for pricing on the asphalt products. Of course, they're going to be cheaper than the synthetic slate. For the next meeting, I'll be able to put those numbers together for you guys. The other part of the, when you look at the administrative building, there's also the copper component. You have eyebrow dormers. They have copper on them, so I want to make sure that the number I'm putting together for the copper and copper flashing is good. Right now, the plan would be to deck over your existing Yankee gutters. So right now, there's a Yankee gutter system that's built in. We would deck over that and just do a normal gutter system. So that would be what would be happening there. And go with a standard ridge vent system. Right now, you're exhausting, for some reason, you're exhausting with a fan out of the attic. Go with a standard ridge vent that naturally just works with that. So we'll price that all up and be ready.
And that's just an example of the level of detail, when Roger was out there doing his field work, he put together this whole bullet list that he was able to pass on to Lou so that you can get a much better sense of exactly what we're talking the scope is, and he can get a much more accurate estimate for you than what you had before.
Just a question to probably Harvey and Walter. We go back on this years looking at this. Do these substitutes qualify for the Historical Society? Is there an issue with that at all by using these materials?
I'll let Walter answer that, but I'll just mention as well, the building is not a historical building. It's got a cornerstone that's not even in the corner, that's dated from, I think, 1830. That's from a previous building, not that building. It was another building in town. That building, I believe, was built in 1930-something, 1935. So it's not on the historical register.
So I just remember it being an issue when we dealt with this years ago. Was that more just, my memory has kind of gone on this, but is it more that we were concerned that the town would be concerned about the look of the building? Was that?
Yes.
that's what it was.
Dave, if I could answer that, I think there's a good segment of our community that would promote and want us to bring the building back to its original condition. And, my viewpoint as a director of facilities is we're in the business of education, not to restore historical buildings, because it would be cost prohibitive, and that's why, the delay in making these repairs have bringing us almost 10, 12 years out. So, there are three options, and behind the scenes, we've been talking about, okay, so what is the cost with, returning it to original quality, the slate, and trying to restore the building, and that is expensive. What is the alternative? You have that plastic slate-looking, product, which really looks like the real deal, especially when you're on the ground looking up on top of a roof. I like the idea of the ridge vent. This way, we don't have any holes in the roof. And then we have the asphalt here. So I would like, Larry, if we could, as the committee, make the recommendation to the board. Well, which direction do we want to go in, taking in consideration the cost analysis of the different products, and then working with Garrett and Barb on the specifications on the products, on, wind uplift, longevity. I happen to like asphalt because it self-seals. I don't know how the fake slate self-seals, if it really does. I don't know the fastening pattern. So these are some of the questions that I would have behind the scenes with, with the designers and with the construction manager. But
it's a good point, Walt, that you're bringing up. The simulated slate needs a minimum pitch, just because of potential ice damming and uplift on the slate. So I think the minimum pitch is like a 612. So you're right. There's a certain thing that we have to look at. We look at the pitch. Your pitch on that building, I believe, is like a 912. I think it meets the requirement, but and as far as the look and feel, you guys probably would be really happy with it. Just the cost. We'll give you the numbers, and it's a good product.
And if I could just speak on the Yankee Gutters with that. So that's been a challenge for us here in facilities, basically for the 19 years I've been here, and a very intriguing design as it was built back then. And the water that's collected off the roof goes to these small little igloos that are on the corner of each building. How do I know? I put a camera down there maybe about 12 years ago. Two of them have collapsed. The other two were still working, but below level. But the Yankee gutter was leaking. So what we did is we EPDM'd it, meaning we put a rubber membrane in there, and then we put a secondary gutter on top of it in the hopes to collect the water through that system and then bring it down externally out to the ground. So, that's the reason why in our conversations we're looking to modify and, basically remove that type of Yankee gutter system, because it just doesn't work. And it's always been cumbersome and challenging, even on buildings that, still exist with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, and I'll just say, Roger almost always designs, if it's either the slate or the synthetic slate, an ice and water membrane system to go under that, just like it's belt and suspenders. You don't want any water to get through there.
I have a product question with the fake slate, which is the plastic, correct?
I'm sorry, could you talk into the microphone a little more?
The synthetic slate, it's the plastic product. What's the fire rating on that?
I believe it's a Class A material. I can double check on that for you. But it's recycled plastic, rubber, cellulose fibers, and mineral dust.
And Walter, to your request, yes, I envision when we're all done here, this committee will make a recommendation for the roof material.
And just as a side note, I don't know how many people visit New Paltz just to be walking around. We did a project with Tetra Tech. It's the New Paltz Middle School, okay? So if you're walking, it's right there in the center of town. It is not on the historic register, but we did send the plans to SHPO just to have them look at it. When you look at the building, it looks amazing. It's synthetic slate. And it had an original slate, had originally a Yankee gutter system. So if you look at the middle school, if you happen to be in the area and you drive by, that's all synthetic slate there.
Good. Any other questions on that?
I've got one question, sorry.
No, you're good.
So when I try to translate what we just talked about to this sheet right here, am I looking at that pricing on this sheet anywhere? An estimate anywhere? I just want to make sure that I'm trying to connect the dots. I wanted to make sure I had the right building first and then
Yeah,
the
it's
right
on-
category. And
It's on the last page under district offices. Under building, it says replace slate roof.
so what pricing is in there right now?
That was for a simulated product. Class, yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I have no idea what that means, but so is it one of the products that we looked at here?
Simulated, yeah, it's not real slate.
Oh, okay. Oh, simulated, okay. I got it.
Real slate is really, really expensive. I mean, you'll see the numbers next, but it's, yeah.
How much of that slate could be saved that's on that roof? You look at it, right?
What happens is slate gets brittle.
Pinned in, right?
It's pinned, but it also gets brittle over a period of time. So you would think you'd be able to reuse it, but once you start pulling that slate off, it crumbles, you know, yeah. So it's not something, I mean, I guess you could use it for a product, like a small project, you know, say if you had a little storage facility that you wanted to match the building, that would be a neat thing to do, because you could probably salvage something from that. But 9 times out of 10, once you start pulling that slate off, you'll find it just, it becomes brittle over the years, and it's, you know, it's designed to be a 100-year product, right? It's there for a long time, but, you know.
Yeah, and it's our understanding that if the building's 1930, you know,
Yeah,
we're pushing
that's
90
right.
plus years on that roof.
That's right,
So
it's right there, yep.
You got your money's worth out of that roof, that's for sure.
And just to clarify something, because this is a non-instructional building, can we get aid or can we not? No aid.
No aid. Just by virtue of being the district office. And I pulled up some product literature. It is a UL listed Class C fire resistant, and then it gives a UL number 790. Okay, anything else on that?
Okay.
Okay, so the next thing on the list was the buildings and ground garage storage. So again, Roger walked with Walter and we took a look at an existing facility you have that is a 2-bay structure. And it sounds like what we're after here is a 4-bay garage, basically for some of the vehicles and trucks that have the plows on them. So based on what the existing 2-bay is, if we extrapolate that this is a 4-bay, we're assuming it would be a 36-foot by 100-foot 4-bay structure with 4 12-foot high overhead doors, some sort of pole barn or prefab building, and we got that information to Lou as well. And again, this would be inherently non-aidable. And it would, if there's any electrical work required, that would be performed by the district. So there wouldn't be any electrical included in our pricing or in the bid.
And Walter, you'd probably be the best to answer this. So what would be stored in there? would you say the current pricing reflects like the bare bones, or is it? Not sure. Yeah.
That was my kind of thought too. At 884,000 for bare bones. When we're gonna do some of that work ourselves, it sounds a little steep, but then again, I don't know exactly what bare bones represents. But, you know, it was just, that was my initial first thought, honestly, so.
Tom brings up a very good point, and I think it's important for everybody in the committee to know. And perhaps, Garrett, you can speak toward that. The big word here is prevailing wage. You know, why do you see these costs that do on the surface seem very high? We have to pay what's known as prevailing wage, and I'll let Garrett go into that a little bit.
Yeah, Harvey, that's exactly right. So, you know, it's a public bid situation, so you're getting competitive bids, which is good, but all of the contractors are either required to be union shops or pay prevailing wages, which is the same rate as the union rates. And so, you know, Lou, you can chime in on that. It does tend to drive up costs significantly.
Yeah, and I think that what you have to look at is it's a 3,000 square foot facility, but depending on the height of that facility, so more volume, if you have more wall to floor area, that ratio, that number just goes up. So it's a steel building, structural steel's been through the roof. It's a 4-bay garage, overhead doors right now for a garage like that, real simple. They're costing anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 installed. That's what it is. At $200 a foot, that's $600,000, and we're projecting out to bid this thing in 2003, right? So you're looking, or 2023. So you're looking at a bond vote in 2022. The earliest that thing could be bid and looked at would be 2023. So you're trying to guess, and you're right, it seems high, but those buildings are inherently today, just because of steel prices, they're not cheap. And then you look at it, is the building an insulated panel system or not? Those are the kind of details where Walt's saying, I think it'll come down. If he's saying, hey, Lou, the building doesn't need to be insulated, you can drive down the cost. Does the roof system need the bad insulation that automatically is bought with it? No. So all those things we'll take into consideration. Is there going to be any type of, you know, normally you have some type of hand cleaning station, just because, you're right, you have a truck, you're working with salt, whatever, hose bib, now we got to bring water, dump it. So all these little things just, they add up to the cost. As we get more into the details, I think we can get definitely closer to a better number, but the numbers are the numbers. It's today with the market, it's been pretty crazy.
I almost want to make sure that, and I apologize if we've already talked about this at a prior meeting, but like even if, when I'm following this whole sheet right here, if I just go to the first page, the first line, and I'll use that as an example, right? So you've got high school, estimated cost $65,000. So we're saying here 20% for incidentals, and that number makes sense, 13K. The next two lines is what I'm having trouble with. Are we saying, so we're building in an extra 9% of 65,000 there? Because that number doesn't foot to what I see there, you know, 7,000. That's not 9%. And the same for the 10% in design and construction. That number, that's not 10% of 65,000. So I'm just trying to like mix and match how those numbers add up. Does that make sense?
It's correct. It's compounded. So you're taking a hard number, and you're taking escalation costs of that hard number.
And then putting 9% on that.
That's correct. And then the same thing with your design and construction contingency, you're taking that. So it is compounded. It's not just going back to that original.
And it works
number.
in that order that we have here?
Well, you know,
incidental?
it's funny, I think everybody looks at it a little differently. I've worked with architects that like to see the incidentals on the back end, and you know, so that you're taking that 20% markup across the 9 and 10. That 9% is actually 3% across 3 years. So I'm just projecting out 3 years of escalation, which is probably low, considering what we're dealing with right now. But I think there are different ways of looking at this. This is probably more an aggressive approach. A more conservative approach would be taking the incidentals and putting it on the back end. And taking that markup.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood your math.
No, it is what it is. I mean, those numbers are, I've been doing this for 26 years. Those are the numbers. And they don't
And I will
change
say,
much.
the New York State Education Department, when we send in our paperwork of projected costs, SED likes to see it built into the numbers, that there is a 10% contingency. And then if it's an elementary school, they like to see 20% incidentals. If it's a high school, they like to see 25% incidentals. And if it's a middle school, we'll often split the difference and say 22.5. They like to see it budgeted that way. I will say a lot of times a district does not spend all that in incidentals, and there's a tiny follow-up phase 2 to spend the unencumbered funds when you finish the first phase from the, you know, there's a second phase from the referendum amount.
So I'll also add a little bit to this. So I'm one of those architects that likes the incidentals on the backside. And actually, when I was working with this spreadsheet today, I mentioned to Lou that we probably want to have some conversation about that. The amount too, because we need to make sure that there's enough incidentals in this project. So is 20% enough? And then the question of cost escalation. So Lou's, as you said, he's carrying 3% a year for 3 years. We need to make sure that we get done what is promised to the voters. And so even though that and the contingency is somewhat up for conversation. So you may see some shifts in this, but I didn't want to make changes today because, you know, we're starting to get a format and we'll explain things as we go along. If we go back to the vehicle storage building, 880 is a number that we talked about. That's what's in our heads now, but that's the fully loaded number. The construction budget is really like 600,000. So, you know, that it's important to be able to differentiate those.
This is a Butler building on Slate, right? That's what it is, right?
Pretty much what we have now, but just with phase.
12-foot doors. 4 12-foot doors.
I would like that.
So will I assume that you're going to get some pricing from the manufacturers and that will feed into this process, right?
Absolutely. We'll talk to, you know, I got a good relationship with American Building suppliers. We just got done bidding a job over here in Phillipstown Garage. So it's a metal building, larger metal building, but the point is I can get these guys to give me numbers on what you guys would be bidding, you know, or be designing. So that's not a problem.
Any additional discussion on that?
Can I ask, I think this might be a question for you, Harvey, kind of a broader question. As we're talking about the district office and the building and grounds building and saying that they are inherently non-aidable, as a committee, obviously, we're discussing the needs of the district, and that's something that we should be talking about. But taking the broader view of, you know, we're looking to potentially do a bond to get all this stuff. Since that's not aidable, should that be, I mean, that should almost be put to the side and dealt with not in the bond, or should that be in the bond, or how are we thinking about that?
It should be in the bond from a critical need perspective. What it will alter or affect is the total project that we can do that will have no impact to the taxpayer based on the $5 million in capital reserve. Okay? So remember when I talked about the fact that for all intents and purposes, our aid ratio is 75%. So $5 million equates to a $20 million project with no taxpayer impact. When you start wheeling in small or any kind of non-aidable pieces, that's going to affect that. Okay, and the point being, we haven't really drilled into that too much yet, because until we know exactly what these costs are, then we can convey it to you what it will mean.
Okay.
But yeah.
So just to kind of, for critical need for the buildings and grounds, it's 1.18, almost 1.2. Critical need for the administrative office is over 800,000. So let's just round that to $2 million. Does that mean that then if we spend $2 million there out of the reserve, there's $3 million, and then that takes your total project from 20 plus down to 3 times 4 is 12 plus 2, 14?
It could. It
Okay.
could. But again, we need to refine those numbers. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Just using what's in front of me, I understand that they're going to change, but just to,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
The other piece is that how do we fix them? How do we maintain the administration building? Where do we then get the money from?
Annual budgets.
And,
Yeah.
taking care of a pole building, to me, we have a huge investment in equipment that would protect. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you, but then we take a look at the bigger picture. We have an administration building that has a roof that is in desperate need of repair. If you've actually taken a look at the windows there, they can't fix them because they're asbestos. So they have to be replaced, or to fix them would cost more than replacing them. So there's something that, the glass rattles when the wind blows. So,
I don't disagree with the need.
yeah,
All I'm just making the point that best case scenario, we have $5 million. If we
Right.
spend it all in an aidable fashion, it goes to 20 million, it's 21.7 or whatever, it's 77%. And if I look at the critical need, grand total on this sheet of paper, it's 34 million.
right.
So already, we're 10 million in the hole.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems like we really should try and concentrate on the things that are aidable and 4X the money that we have, rather than take it down. I mean, they need to be addressed, but when do we address them?
Well, then, I would suggest, when we're all said and done and we're making our recommendations, that would be part of our recommendation, either to put it in the bond or make a recommendation on how to fund it and what time frame to take care of these issues. Not just to say, yeah, but we'll take care of it later. I think it needs to be addressed one way or another.
Yep.
We have to, as a committee, say, here are recognized needs. Let's figure out a way, go to the board and say, you got to figure out a way to fund these if you're not going to do it in this bond. We can't just let it go by the side again.
Agree totally.
And one of the things we do every year, in the regular operating budget, we have what I'll call a small amount of a transfer to capital, which allows us to do certain small projects. Perhaps, and this is why when we get these final cost figures, it'll help us identify, hey, we can pull it out, and maybe we can do it in the budget, okay? Maybe we can't do it next year, but we can do it in 2 years. Great.
Yep.
Okay, so this whole costing out process serves many purposes.
And just to reinforce something, because Jim, you bring up a great point, and Larry as well. I think just that was one of the things that surfaced last time, is that maybe it was 2 times ago. If we don't have something that we're including in the bond, but it's a critical need by our own admission, we need to have some sort of plan, 5-year, 10-year. And to Jim's point, I think that if all this is proportional, like something is, we're going to have to cover the full cost of one thing or 25% of the other. We almost have to think of it as like proportional need. Do we need this 3 times more than we need something else that we would get aid on? And that could be a helpful metric as we attempt to whittle this down.
And then just last piece, because then we'll move to middle school traffic pattern. Just unfortunately, we've been in a position where we've been pulling from transfer to capital to address sky is falling needs. So now we're in a position where if this passes, we can address some critical needs in our instructional buildings and pull some of that like other districts do for the outliers. So again, it all is dependent on things being taken care of in an appropriate manner, so we're not in a position that we're trying to take care of our instructional buildings with these small bits and pieces that Harvey's talking about. So Barb, do you want to hit the last item, please?
Yes, and actually, I'm going to turn that over to Tom Farlow, sitting there amongst you. So he's one of our civil engineers, a landscape architecture kind of guy, and he's also our drone pilot. So he came out and he filmed some drop-off and pickup times and made some observations. So I'll turn it over to Tom.
Good evening, everyone.
If you need us to bring up any images, just shout.
Yeah, why don't, Michael, if you could put up the Word document you had? And then have the PDF that I sent earlier today queued up as well. Yeah, if you can zoom in, Michael. So I've been out to the district a couple times over the last month to first try to fly all of your buildings with our drone to collect data, also to collect video of the areas that we can use for planning purposes. Then I believe it was mid-October I came back specifically to observe the afternoon pickup and the morning arrival at the middle school. And I had heard while I was out here the first time from Walt and a few other folks that the traffic at the middle school can be interesting. It can be challenging and frustrating all at the same time. So that being said, let me say that typically the concern with traffic at a middle school or an elementary school is typically the afternoon pickup. Just the number of parents or other folks that are picking up students that are queued up, waiting to pick up the students. It just creates a lot of congestion. Interestingly, with the middle school, it's opposite. It's actually the morning arrival that really creates a challenge. You have a lot going on with what you have at the middle school. I know many of you have actually observed it or been through it. I actually drove through the morning arrival to get firsthand idea what was going on, and it was as organized as I think you really can manage. Organized chaos, I would say. Your staff that's out there, I believe they're police officers directing traffic, actually did a nice job, and it was relatively easy to get through. But that being said, the morning is a real challenge. Michael, if you can go to the PDF, that would be helpful. So in a nutshell, what you have going on is, unfortunately, I didn't get to video the entire arrival process to count the number of passenger cars that were coming through, but there were a lot. Plus, you have the buses, and they're all kind of mingling all together at the front circle. Unfortunately, can you zoom in a little bit more, Michael? Yeah, try to add some arrows onto to this drawing, and I've got some red arrows that are supposed to represent passenger cars, and the yellow, which is kind of difficult to see, which is represent the buses. And what you have is buses and passenger cars that are weaving or crossing in front of each other. Fortunately, you have the staff, the folks out there that are kind of holding up cars so that buses can come in and unload students, but they're all using the same spot. That means that while the buses are coming in, the passenger cars are being held up, which is creating the queuing along Main Street. And you've got folks coming in from I believe it's the north and the south, It seemed like there was more people in the south coming and making a left turn into the site. So it becomes a challenge. You've got buses now that, have a difficult time getting in. So how do you approach that? The other aspect you have is you have staff that are also trying to get in to the parking lot. You've got one entrance essentially in from the front of the building with one exit. The saving grace we have with this is you also have a rear access that a number of folks actually do use. That's the stone driveway between the middle school and this site. And I was astounded by the number of people that actually were using that rear access point. And I'm sure it's more staff in the morning, and then, the occasional parent or, a number of parents picking up their students at the rear of the middle school and then turning around and heading back out towards the elementary school. Along with that, you also have a stream that's to the south side of the parking lot there that creates a challenge. We really can't push closer to that in terms of a driveway. And then on the other side, to the north side, you have a soccer field, which, looks like it's well used, and so that creates a challenge of how to potentially create additional access points. I wish I could say that we have options of how to deal with that right today. I think we're still learning about how the traffic is moving through the site. Who is using the front access versus the rear access, and how to best approach it. We do have some ideas, but I don't want to show you a pretty picture today without going through and looking at this a little further. But needs to say, you have some challenges, but I think we do have some ideas.
Mm-hmm. So I'll add a little bit to this. So we're prepared to start working up solutions, but we wanted to get your input on this to make sure we fully understand the challenges and the problems here. So I'd like to ask for some feedback from you folks on, does Tom's description ring a good bell for you? Did he get it right? Is morning worse than afternoon? That conflict point, talk about the stone driveway. Just give us some input on, are we in the right track? Because then what we'll do is we'll take that information in addition to what we've already learned, and then we'll start to show you some options that could make things better.
Walter, question. Did you show them the access that we have off of
Mailer.
Mailer? Yeah. Okay. Because there is an emergency access point that just sits there, which could, at some point, we had, in the past, we had talked about a possibility of coming in, using that.
I think he observed that. He said a lot of people are using that.
No, not the roadway. Off of Mailer. There's a,
Intersects the backstop.
Okay.
right.
Gotcha.
It comes in through that way.
That's really good information. Yeah.
So it could conceivably be a different traffic pattern using that.
So Gary, you want to look at to the end here? You're going to have somebody going to talk to you about firsthand experience as well as a mom doing drop-off?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I just want to tell you that you have it right. There's no doubt about it. You have it right. Mornings are much where, oh, by the way, I'm the bus driver. I drive to that school every day. Okay?
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me. So the way it works now is there's a sheriff's officer at the north entrance to the middle school. He holds traffic, and buses and cars go in at the same time in the same direction, like you have it with the arrows. and he allows cars to drop, and you see where those buses are. We can fit about 4. There's 1, 2 there, and a third one coming. So if everybody moves up and then they move out, those people on the right are resters. They got time between their next run, which is going to be an elementary school run. And you do have the arrows right. There are people, but in front of that first bus that you see on the circle, not towards the end of the road, but on the first bus, there's a monitor there who is watching the on and off of the children, and there's also there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of people out there. Most are security, but a lot of teachers have to work it too, and they allow the teachers to come in the parking lot. But I would agree with you that probably staff does come in through the back. I'm sure they do, or they're already there when I get there. But the problems are exactly right. It's mostly morning, and it's mostly drop off in the morning. Afternoons on bad weather days and in the winter can get backed up to Academy, which becomes a real problem, because now the buses who are leaving and going north and heading either to 9W or to turn 9W north and south both, there can be a conglomeration of traffic at the end of Main Street and Academy, which becomes a problem.
Why is afternoon worse when it's bad weather?
Because everybody picks up their kid.
Okay.
Like today.
Yep.
So that is really a product of that. People picking up their kids in bad weather. So in the wintertime, it becomes worse because you may have school, they may have not called school, and now you don't have sidewalks. Walter will do his sidewalk, but the town owns the other sidewalk. So that becomes a problem too. People want to let their kids off on Main Street. They don't have a place to walk. They end up walking in the road. But I got to say, all in all, they do a great job. It's pretty safe. I don't, for what it is, it works, but it's not great. It's definitely not great. Now, I think handicap access is in the rear of the school, so our handicap single student or multiple student small buses do enter and exit somehow through there, and I don't know that. Harvey probably knows because he's the bus guy, but we do get handicapped in and out of the rear of the school somehow, and I think a lot of staff. There is staff parking, right, Harvey, up on top in the rear for staff?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, not a lot, but
No.
but anyway, I think you have an accurate piece of what's going on. Solution-wise, you'll figure it out, because I won't. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what happened.
And you have some input too?
I don't even know where to begin. Actually, I will have to say that I don't think morning drop-off or evening pickup is any different as far as like safety-wise. I think for me as a parent dropping off, morning, as long as I'm there by a certain time, is a snap. I usually try to drop my girls off by 7:50, so they're standing outside. Like today, I tried to get them a little later so that they didn't have to stand in the rain, even though they let them inside the little area when you walk into the school. But I will tell you, when you go for evening pickup, sometimes you don't know exactly what time buses are going to be there to pick up. So you may be there earlier than the buses get. And so where you're entering on Main Street, right where the soccer field is, there's a couple of parking spots on that side road. If you don't get one of those parking spots, you have to continue to circle around. And what's happening is parents are parking up on Curry Road, either going this direction or this direction, which what in turn happens once the buses start going out, you have a madhouse of those parents trying to get out. Those that circle around and continue to go, they go down Curry up to Academy, and then they go to Nema, and park in Nema and wait. And then when they start seeing buses leave, they start crossing over the road. So there's a lot of very unsafe situations that are happening. Once you pull in, if the buses have left and you're picking up and you're one of the cars that's there before, you have to go all the way around the bus loop and go to the beginning of Main Street. So what ends up happening is sometimes you have where the staff parking lot is, you have the problem of blocking that with the cars. So you have cars back to where the buses normally are, and kids are running all over the place. Those that are walkers that are walking down to Main Street, they're just running and screaming, and you never know which one's going to run out in front of you. You also have the situation of parents trying to get around the system and coming through the backside through buildings and ground. They come through the staff parking lot, creating another havoc. Then you also have sports, and when sports are happening, the buses come in and have to be in the staff parking lot. So you might have extra buses at that point. I've seen them parked there. I don't know if that's like a normal thing or if they're just doing it right now. Those are the main situations, and what. So I think part of the unsafe thing that I probably get road rage every single day from is when you are pulling through to pick up and you go to try to pull out, 15 cars will just keep going in front of you no matter if you have your blinker on, or if you're starting to head out, they just go. I will imagine one day we're gonna have a pretty significant accident in that area. So that's just something to kind of think about when people are pulling out. Those are the main things. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. Well, this is really helpful information. I'll say we've done redesigns of traffic patterns hundreds and hundreds of times in school. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to come up with something that's an improvement. There are a number of sort of criteria that we look for. We always like to separate buses and cars, and pedestrians being the third. So you want them all three in different worlds, and right now you've got two worlds colliding, basically. So I think Tom has a number of questions that we want to just sort of explore with you tonight, if we can, quickly, starting with, is the area inside the roadway here available to us to modify it? Can we start to take down some of the trees if we needed to? Could we adjust traffic patterns through that? It does look like there are some memorial trees in there. How does that factor in? So if you could talk a little bit about that area right in the middle, that would be a good start for us.
So Garrett, I'll float something under the auspices of where you're going, I believe, developing areas and properties. I think we are in critical need of your services, Tom, because I believe, there's a guy at Disneyland that makes a living for, sending people around the way just to make them think they're doing something, So I would float the concept and the idea of, and this will parlay into a few different areas that we've touched on. You've got quite a bit of money earmarked, bus loop, staff parking, ancillary items, lighting and such, striping, sidewalks. Float the idea, I float it to everybody, and you'll draft something, I'm sure, or idea, is eliminating, right? Because the big movement now is separating buses and parents. Eliminating that complete and entire side parking lot altogether in a wholesale fashion and make it green space. And the practice field that's currently behind the school, turn that into a parking area. And where that parlays in is Walter's begging to have the highway behind his place either paved or cut off. Now, you can tentatively bring parents in Lee Road or this ancillary entrance, loop them around Walters Road into a parking lot and spit them out down Mallard Avenue, and it's one way in, one way out. Parents can come in, drop off and go, and staff can also come in, park, and then bus drop off is in front. The police aren't shaking people off of Main Street. You're not doing the death loop, right? And then you're not getting parents crossing buses, because while, Dave, everything is safe until it's not safe, until the event happens, and it's a catastrophic level, 11 event. So I would.
Michael Hale, can you give us a site plan that shows the whole site instead of just the traffic loop so people can point to that?
So, whether this has legs or doesn't, I'm sure you'll poke the holes and/or show validity in it either way. I don't know that, and if the next evolution of this is parlays or folds into the field concept, I think Dave was advocating the idea of why none of the field ideas, the stadium ideas, repurpose the footprint of the current field. Well, that parking area now would be your parking for your middle school events. A potentially larger area. I don't know what the car count is there. I don't know what the stall count is. By memory, I think that parking lot that we're seeing there does have open stalls in a school day. I'm not positive, but I don't think it's at a capacity situation. So I mean, again, footprints. I'm not sure if a football practice field will fit there. I mean, if you're talking about taking all the asphalt down in that parking lot, rebuilding it from the bottom up, well, let's repurpose the topsoil on our field over there, screen it, and then import or upcycle it. So just a thought. I mean, and then I don't think, I know the last iterations that we saw, this committee saw on developments for the front of the school, I don't know that anyone really hugged those trees super hard. Or modifications in the front. I know some people were taking the front of the school a little bit for, modified parking and such. I don't know that this committee.
Would stealing part of the circle, would that do something? Could you do something if you stole 10 feet of the circle? See, that's a doable thing.
Well,
I mean, nobody's going, we've already, how many feet have we stolen so far, Walt?
6, maybe.
At least.
It just happens.
This happened, but it's getting more, but I'm saying.
You keep driving your bus on the grass,
They can't, Steve will keep paving it.
we'll keep sending it.
There's a $2 million
obviously,
proposed bus.
You want to keep it green, you do, but to steal, I mean, those trees were all planted, they can be replanted. But to steal part of the circle, if that was the concept that you were thinking of in your mind, I don't see why you couldn't do it. I really don't.
It is a hill in the center there. I mean, that's probably 15 feet, and it looks like it may be rock underneath and not dirt. I don't know. So that's a consideration as well, as can it just be dug out, or it doesn't need to be blasted, but.
Yeah, one of the thoughts was kind of going into the north side of that island and pull the north entrance where the buses are coming in, the cars are coming in to the south, make more of a perpendicular access. Now, it's set up 45-degree angle off of Main Street,
That is true.
which can be a challenge. Fortunately, it's coming in, not going out. And then put another entrance or another potential parent pickup area to the north with a circle. But it sounds like the number of people that are actually picking up, it can get quite large. But trying to separate, what Garrett said, is trying to separate the passenger cars from the buses. We have a number of different scenarios that we can institute.
Garrett, Garrett, do you have enough information from us on this now that you can kind of move a little with it?
Larry, I think you're exactly right. I want to move the conversation along here. Let me just ask Tom, are there any other questions that you have that you?
One question I have is the number of walkers that you have. Is there a large population of students that are walking?
You mean like walkers as in being picked up by parents, or walkers that are leaving school to walk home?
Walking to go home.
How many walkers at the middle school?
Okay.
Okay, great.
A lot of buses.
And to that end,
No. How many walkers at the middle school versus buses?
The first part, I don't know. I know what walks past my building in the morning and what walks and shares the gravel road.
Well, I live on Main Street, and I see the kids walk by. It depends on the weather. Beautiful weather, we got a lot of kids walking by.
Larry, like we were
Today,
saying, if the sidewalks aren't done and we're still having school, they're not walking.
yeah, well, no, there are walkers, because when the sidewalks aren't done, the kids are walking in the street.
One question, maybe it's already known, to separate the bus and the kids being dropped off, do we know what that distribution is? I mean, how many, is it 50/50 or 70% bus? I mean, just to understand how much space we need for those that are being dropped off.
So that's changed dramatically recently with COVID. The drop-offs and the pickups by the parents have increased exponentially, which is exacerbating part of this problem. It's hard to give you a number. There's so many variables now, you know, with that, as well as the weather, which has been mentioned, the time of the year. It's not a good mix right now. There's so many cars. If you go there, you'll see it to believe it.
So we can get if we re-video the arrival, when I was out here a week or two ago, I didn't get the full arrival experience. I drove through it, so I did feel what a parent might go through, but
Yeah.
if we video it with our drone, which we did, we have the full dismissal, you know, we'll be able to tell, we'll be able to count number of cars that are coming in versus buses, you know, and we can see people, you know, they're dots, we can't recognize who they are, but we can, you know, get a sense of how many students are actually getting off a bus versus, you know, the number of cars that are coming through, and are they parents or are they staff? So
I just like to make, Harvey is 100% right how COVID has impacted transportation, but also, for the first time in history, we had three major construction projects going on at the same time. We had 3 bridges on 9W, we have the pipeline going up Route 32, and we had a tremendous amount of work on Main Street that's being done. So that's exasperating walking too. So I'm sure there's a few people, especially Lynn would probably know this better than anybody, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that are riding who haven't been riding.
This is really helpful, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. All right. So there's a field, I'm thinking future state, there's a field to the north here that is a disaster. With a multi-purpose field and wherever they are, is that field even necessary there? Do we have to have that? Could that space be used for something?
Tom, when you say it's a disaster, could you just elaborate what you mean by that?
If you go out there today after the rain, yeah, the soccer field.
Oh.
If you go out there today after the rain, it's a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know that field would be necessary in a future state, I guess is my point. With multi-purpose fields at whatever location, soccer would now be on those fields. So why do we need them? I don't know, that's extra land there that, I'm kind of going where you were going, where the practice fields are, in the back, with the parking lot, whether it's there, whether it's in the front. It just seems like extra land.
And just one point on multipurpose fields and our community, just know that once we put a multipurpose field wherever, our in-district kids are going to be on it all the time. So if you think of lacrosse, soccer, football, you name the time, there's going to be people on it. So then if we get rid of other fields, and I agree that field needs some work for the rain in particular, but then we just need to start thinking about where would community use occur with some of that green space. But really good point, but I just want to make the point of multi-purpose fields will be packed. Jen talked about how many practices, games, and everything would be on those.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that. I mean, between what you have with community and us not really using Laurel Crest anymore, a lot of these spaces like at Willow and the middle school, they're being used by the town youth programs. And I mean, a suggestion is if we're going to take that middle where there's, quite a hill, and we're repurposing some of that, that dirt, it might be nice to maybe lift that side field up a little bit and bring it up so that, you know, you're not sitting in puddles of water. But I mean, between, you know, modified soccer, girls and boys, and then you have JV and varsity, and sometimes they're, you know, they're all vying for space, just soccer alone.
Again, I guess my point was there's a field behind the middle school and a field next to it. Maybe we go to, do we need both of them, where we could use one for one thing and one for park and one for another?
You have even during modified soccer games, if the girls are playing modified soccer, the boys are back there practicing, and then you also have.
But think about this though. Now the field at the middle school that is not being used at all for anything besides football would now be used for another sport. I guess is my point.
I don't know.
I'm
if
just
there's
kind of
en-
like
Yeah, I don't know if there's
thinking
enough
future
field
state.
space. Something to definitely think about.
Yeah. I'm just trying to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, this is good. And so for the next meeting, I'm going to suggest that we bring some possibilities for solutions, share them with you, and then get your feedback on those. I think that'd be good. I get the sense that we want to keep moving here. From the going through the memo standpoint, I think, Barb, we addressed everything that we wanted to in the list, right?
Yes.
The planning document, we've actually touched on that along the way. I wanted to talk about contingencies and incidentals, so I appreciate doing that. Are there any other questions about the scoping document that we're using at this point? The one thing I want to point out is that we've built in some formulas into this spreadsheet that make it very easy to work with now. So the column that says priority, it's as easy as changing a 1 to a 2, and the totals all recalculate. And so this will be a very good tool for us moving forward as we're honing down how do we get to 20 million, because you know, that's the goal here. So if there aren't any other questions on that, I know we're going to set a meeting date, but the one other thing I wanted to just bring up is we understand that you all have not decided where this turf field is going to go. And we're going to need to make a decision on that pretty quickly, because that impacts so many other things in the project, cost being one of them, but also timeline for preparing for a vote and those kinds of things. So I'd like to suggest that we focus on the field location decision at the next meeting, if that's okay with you, Larry and Terry and everyone. I think that we need to kind of dive into it and start to get real on, is it at the middle school? Is it at the high school? Are you talking about 2 fields? Let's kind of get down to it. To that end, I wonder if there are some things that we can do to prepare for that conversation so that it's as fruitful as possible next meeting. So do you have things that you'd like to ask us to look at or come back? You know, we'll do our best without that input, but if there's some things that you think, oh, these are questions, let's talk about them now.
I have a question for Brendan. When will you have any feedback from the communications committee in 2 weeks as to anything along those lines of location?
So I was just thinking that as Garrett was speaking, our next, our first forum is actually going to be, the next day. So it would actually be immediately after. So our next meeting is the 9th. The forum would be on Tuesday. The forum would be the Wednesday, the 10th. Now, that's fine if we say, Garrett, when you say make a decision, or, get closer to a decision,
Yep.
are we making a decision in 2 weeks, or are we having our big, throw the gloves down and, put everything on the table discussion Tuesday, and then making a decision by the next meeting? Because at that would work out very well. In fact, it would be Tuesday night, the committee talks about it. Wednesday night, I'm sure the community will want to talk about it, and we'll have everything we need by the following meeting, I think. At that point, there's, no more data really that we would request.
I think that sounds like a really good plan, if the rest of the committee's in agreement. It seems logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to signal in now on the next meeting. We'll be discussing the down and dirty details. So when you're talking about things like that, just based on my short time here, that's when emails and things start picking up. So I like that with the last meeting in November being decision time.
Decision. Yeah, I
So,
like that a
so
lot.
at our next meeting here, we can have the discussion of if it's at the high school, it would look like this. If it's at the middle school, it would look like this. Would that be helpful? And then at your forum, you would end up having feedback, and then we could then move forward at a subsequent meeting of this committee as to then to solidify our direction.
Yeah, so we come in next time with some options for you to consider, and spark the conversation that way.
Okay,
I like that.
okay.
I think that works.
Tom, you had some feedback that you wanted to bring up, or would you want to bring that up at the next meeting instead? The next meeting? Okay.
So, oh, I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
So,
Can I?
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, can I step backwards a minute just because we kind of mentioned this, and this was, as this was emailed out this afternoon, a question I posed to Harvey was, are these numbers updated? And the answer I got was some yes, some no. Can you just give us a quick little answer, Harvey, as to what's updated, what's not, or can you provide a little more commentary on that?
Sure. And to your point, I was thinking about, coding them and so forth. My feeling is just, I don't want to turn this thing into like a Ouija board looking thing.
Yeah, I don't want to go line by line through it.
That's
but
fair enough. And Lou can speak to this as well. As far as the athletic complex, all the numbers are very strong, particularly with regards to the field. Lou can talk toward that. I know he got them off of recent jobs, but.
Yeah, so on the athletic field side of things, we recently took in bids at Rondout Central School District, full sports facility, stadium, lights, carpet, multi-use, an 8-lane track, not 6-lane, as you guys are looking at. So we have recent numbers there. We have recent numbers from Spackenkill as well. And then on the carpet side, we have a multi-purpose field that we just took in bids in at Mayapack. So when we look at these numbers, these are real numbers that I'm using from recently bid projects of similarly sized 88, 90, 2,000 square feet of synthetic area. Again, you guys are looking at a smaller track, 6-lane, not 8-lane. But again, the stormwater component that's associated with it, all the sports field events that are associated with it, the bleachers, press box, scoreboard, it's all there. So I feel really good about those numbers. And I think Barb did a good job of talking to the areas that we're getting information on. So the agenda that she went through initially with the roofs, with the roof scans and everything else. So those numbers, of course, have not been updated. We're looking at those. When you look at the plumbing, her plumbing engineers just gave me a recent overview of their walkthrough. Just got it. Yeah. So
anything on here needs to be updated.
Everything, and these are major components. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Jim, the one thing I want to mention, and this speaks toward how important this refinement's going to be. If you look at the high school, under the mechanical, we have installed heating in the band and the chorus rooms, okay? The original sheet that had it on here, that was, Walter, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was almost 250, okay? We've dove into that. Lou got pricing, and we can do it a little differently, and you can see the order of magnitude. It's 1/10 of what the original cost was.
Can we do that with the rest of
We're trying. We're working on it. We're working. So,
Doesn't always work.
yeah.
I was going to say, one question. Is the athletic complex pricing that we see on here under the assumption that it is here versus here, or are we saying it's the same price no matter where we put it? Because I can't imagine a situation where it would be the same price here and here. One's going to favor another in terms of pricing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that a good example at the high school, getting access to where the new stadium would be, just something as simple as walkway access or even vehicle access, that's going to be a number that you wouldn't probably see here, over here at the middle school, right? Because the middle school is easily accessible from a lot of different points. Over there where the design showed the new stadium, we have, and I'm just pointing out a simple thing like walkway to get back to where that new stadium, that's going to be a cost that would be there that I wouldn't have over here at the middle school. But, and you're right. I think what we have to do is really dive into what do you want to do at the middle school? What do you want to do at the high school? What's really the important things? And then I can really dive in and make sure the numbers make sense. Is the fill material that's currently there, is it good to work with or not? How much, so that's another, it's just walking the site and looking at it.
So this is a middle school price, I guess is.
No, actually, again, I took these, Rondat High School, these are real numbers. These are, and I used Rondat as a goal because that one there had 800 seats, right? It had 200 seats visitor side. It had, a significant display for scoring. It had the four sports field events. It had the 8-lane track. Everything it had made sense for what you guys are looking at, and it's a number I just took.
I almost think it would be best to see, like, if you give us options, I'd like the pricing with option A, option B,
Yes.
C, and D. I just think it
And that's
connects the
what,
dots
I think that
better.
is the next, that'll be the next step, and that's
Yeah.
sort of what Garrett
I
was
have a
talking
question.
about.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do an overlay at the middle school field. Why wouldn't we have an overlay as an option at the middle school field?
When you say overlay, what do you mean?
I'm saying turf field inside the existing field.
That's absolutely another option. You could keep your existing track and just put
Existing track saves about what, 750,000?
a new track system is all day long is at least $500,000, if not more. Yes, so 750 is probably a good number. So you keep the synthetic component and, do that in the middle.
What they did at Walk Hill was they installed the field inside multi-sport, and they kept the existing track, they built a
Our
bridge,
project.
and they sprayed the surface when it was done.
That's right.
And it looks like it's, and the track like ours was done by Copeland, so you know it's a good track.
Yep.
And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do that. And as far as the standing home and away, the new trend now is to stand on one side. If you look at the Highland Falls field, it's standed on one side, Middletown standed on one side, Goshen standed at one side. It's cheaper. It's cheaper. I'm looking to save money. That's just me. But I think that's what the community wants to see.
I think
us
those
do,
are all
too.
great ideas. Yep.
Can I just ask, do we know what part of this is aidable and what's not aidable? Because I know there's a couple of things on here that's not aidable from last discussions.
The majority of the field work is going to be aidable.
Okay.
Okay.
So like the concession stand is aidable, that kind of
That's-
stuff.
That would be one category. That
So I think,
Yeah.
that's an important factor that the community is going to want to know, like what's aidable.
Yep.
And the other question I have is, we're talking about middle school versus high school. And at what point do we bring the community and ask them, what's the most important? Yes, right. So are we going to plan on doing some sort of an outreach to the community and asking them, if we put this at the high school, are you for it? Or if we put it at the middle, keep it at the middle school?
Yeah, I think that'll be a big topic of the forum. We also want to be clear that it's not the athletic fields forum, because we want to make the most use of it as possible. We also don't want to send any signal, which would not be true, that this is just an athletic field bond. But because of the timing, I think this works out very well. This is meaningful feedback that we're getting from the community at the time when we need it, because we have to make a decision by the next.
I think there's a piece that was brought up at the last meeting by our athletic director, who couldn't be here tonight, but will be here at the next meeting. There's more to consider than just dollars and cents, depending on where we put the field. So those are things that we're going to have to, when asking somebody, do you want it at the middle school, do you want it at the high school, there's a lot of stuff behind that most people wouldn't understand or know.
Costs behind it.
The cost behind it, the busing all the teams down. There's a lot of pieces that people wouldn't understand, and that's what would have to be explained thoroughly.
And I think this will, if this all goes well, which I assume it will, the Tuesday's committee meeting will give us the facts, clarity we need to present the community with what the options actually are, so that we can frame the discussion in realistic terms.
And to Garrett's question, I like Tom's example of option A will cost this much. I just don't want us to be 2 weeks from now saying, well, what about parking? So we have to, if there's parking needed at the middle school, we need to fold that into what the package price will be. We can work with Harvey on what the cost would be for transporting 6 different teams. So all those pieces, I think, are important pieces of information for the committee to have, so that we're not waiting another 2 weeks for more fact-finding to make a decision.
So I know that we can have options for you from a design standpoint. Pricing is another whole situation. And so I think maybe Lou can have some orders of magnitude saying this is more expensive than this, but since we're going to be exploring probably multiple options, we're not just going to come in and say it's this one in the middle school and it's this one at the high school. I don't think we can expect Lou to have pricing for each of the various scenarios for the next meeting. I think what would happen is I would see the next meeting honing us down, saying, okay, if we're at the high school, it's this. If we're at the middle school, it's this. We come to agreement, and then Lou does some pricing so that then you have some comparison. Would that be acceptable? Because I think it's going to be a real challenge to come in with solid options and solid pricing, unless, Lou, you're feeling differently.
I just think if there's anything of significant magnitude, the group would want that. If it's minor things, like if a walkway is going to be a couple here and there, I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker. But I think anything major that the group should consider should be at least attempted to price
Like
out.
for instance, you had mentioned at some point a concession stand with bathrooms at the high school could be gravity fed, and the middle school, it would have to be pumped. So those are big differences.
Yeah, right. So listen, I know I can get the design done in 2 weeks. I'm just worried about what Lou can get done in 2 weeks. So I'm bringing it to the table.
Yeah, I mean, we would definitely need some time. I mean, I'll do whatever I have to do to try to turn something around.
Walter? Walter?
When you are asking for input in your committee, what about the students? Will they be included in the polling?
So our first survey went to every district resident, and that was, our first effort just to have something to start with. And I think our next phase will be to go into more of those subgroups, so staff, students, certainly. As of this point, all of our events or anything are aimed at the entire community, so we would encourage students to attend that one on the 10th.
Because I think it's important that we offer the sense of belonging to our students, that, their voice is heard, the athletes and even the non-athletes, and what are they thinking? Because it's really their house, right? We're just the stewards of it, and they go through their K through 12. So I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah. I've heard that before too, Walter. So I think it's no, I'm saying I'm giving you credit for tapping into the zeitgeist, for understanding what people are looking for.
I mean, foundationally, that's our why.
Yeah.
That's why we're all here around the table.
We have a Board of Ed meeting next Monday. Could we, and then normally the reps aren't there because it's a work session. Could we invite them to that meeting?
I don't think we need to necessarily invite them, but maybe either Brendan and I could meet with them,
Okay.
or just, because they will be a great vehicle to
Right,
get
that's
student
okay.
input, particularly at the high school level.
Yeah.
And as we spread the word about the forum, we can make sure that, particularly at the high school level, with, but all levels, that those students know. It's also, I mean, most parents know things because their kids tell them. So that's another way of just getting more people involved.
If I could just make one more comment. Larry, you brought it up of what Jennifer said last week, and Terry, you alluded to it as well. I think it's really important that we have that further discussion, whether Terry, you lead that, or Jennifer leads that next meeting about high school versus middle school, not just the dollars and cents, but the fact that it's probably, I think she said there's 64 games thereabouts that are played, and they're all, played by high school students. So are we going to send 64 buses, and that doesn't even begin to account for practices? So that sort of discussion really opened my eyes. I think that's something that we should further, Jennifer or Terry, you should address further in our next committee meeting
Absolutely.
here before we go to the community, because that's really important. Personally, I hate it because I played on that field in the middle school, so I kind of sentimentally wanted it at the middle school, but it's that comment from her really opened my eyes last week. So
I want to ask a question. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second here. So part of me wants to take a poll of this group. Who wants the field in the high school? Who wants it in the middle school? I'm not going to do that. I think that's a bad idea. Part of me also wants to ask a question, and I'm going to ask the question, but I don't want you to raise your hands, okay? How many in this room, and I don't want you to raise your hands, but I'd like you to ask yourself and answer this question for yourself. Do you know where you want the field? Because I think it's important that we ask that question and bring our sort of selves to the table that way. Are we having a conversation it could be either place, or have people really already decided where it needs to go? It's fine either way. I'd like us to, when we come back together next week, to bring ourselves to the table in that manner. And then the next question that I would ask, and you know your community far better than I do, is how many people in the community already know where they want the field? Are they on the fence? And I think that's a real question to be asking yourselves about your community, because if the community already knows where the field needs to go, that's a real factor. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're right, maybe, but if they know where they want the field and you're choosing something different, we're going to have to articulate why you're choosing something different very carefully. Otherwise, they're going to tell you what they want.
Okay. Harvey, do you have anything else? I opened the last couple of minutes of the meeting to the group. How are we doing?
I just wanted to loop back to the aid question. On that list of athletic complex, the items on there that I think are not aidable is the press box, the athletic concession stand with bathrooms, and the team locker room / storage.
But Barb, you did say at, I think the first board meeting you guys were at, that potentially as part of site work, there could be a concrete slab laid down that just happened to be the exact size necessary for a concession stand.
Well, yes, that could happen.
Yeah.
And it might even have utilities and conduits running to it.
So something that I would just like the group to ponder, no answer needed tonight. We talked about making this group kind of starting to consolidate our thinking as a recommendations to the board before the winter break. I'm wondering if we need more time, so I'm just going to put my parent hat on. So there's a lot here. And we're gonna have 2 meetings dedicated to the athletic complex, and I'm loving that. But I would just want as much energy into CES, the middle school, the high school, Willow, and COH. I mean, because these are some really critical needs. So I just don't want us to give any kind of inclination that we're prioritizing one over the other. I know we're not. But as we delve into these deep conversations, we should probably be having a good amount of time really delving into this is 20 to 22 million, of which athletic complexes is a piece. But like Jim said, I did the math too, 34 million. We still have some work to do to narrow down. So as we think of critical needs and that whole conversation that we had a few meetings ago, I just want to make sure that we're giving us enough time, the community enough time, the same kind of energy with some of those needs. So again, no answer needed tonight, but I'm just wondering if that goalpost is correct. Now that we're saying we're going to spend next meeting on athletics, make a decision with regards to location by before Thanksgiving, that only leaves 2 meetings, I think, to discuss everything else. So just something for us to consider.
Hey, Terry, that's a really great idea, and I think the memo that Harvey and Walt put together last time was really helpful in terms of guiding us, and maybe you could do the same thing for some other items in addition to the field. So the next meeting is not just about fields, but we're going to have another list of 5 or 6, tasks to take on. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
And also, again, our electrical team or electrical designers will be out there next week, as will our mechanical, so we can sort of report back on what their findings were and further information about just clarifying those scopes. And mechanical is a fairly decent piece of this.
I have a quick question. Who's going to decide? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I have a question. Is the school board going to vote on whether or not this bond gets separated into 2 pieces, or is it going to be 1 piece?
That is a decision that the school board has the final say on. When we're all finished here, we may make a recommendation one way or another. At this point, that's nowhere near that point. But everything here, the final piece is up to the school board. We could spend the next 5 weeks working on something, and the majority of the board may say, that's very nice, thank you very much, but we want something different. I mean, it's possible. I'm hoping they take the recommendation, or at least work with the recommendations that the committee gives, considering there's a number of us sitting here.
That would be a tragedy if that happened, by the way. I'm sorry to say it.
No argument.
Okay.
We have 4 members sitting here so I think that would, but there's always that possibility, and the school board always has the final say. So, anybody have anything else? Our next meeting is November 9th. Do we know if we're going to be fighting with basketball in that? No. Okay, cool. Okay, we'll be in this room. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate you coming out on a soggy night.
Good work.
Thank you, Larry.